Hey guys, Nikhil here from Team Aquis. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Joining us is our founder Vikas. So, for those of you who don't know, Aquis is one of the world's largest brand protection companies. We build deep technology to protect every brand across all sectors. And in this video, we'll be doing a deep dive into seeds. Now, not a lot of you may be thinking about seeds, but in one way or the other, each and every single one of us, consumers, business owners, whatever you want to call it, are affected by seeds because we eat. And a major chunk of our diet is food, and food always pretty much vegetarian food especially starts at seeds.
What are you saying? Major chunk of our diet is food.
So I I mean, from a vegetarian perspective,
Okay.
there are people who are non-veg also, right?
No, but
Unko seeds
food is
फर्क नहीं
food.
पड़ता.
Acha,
I think actually even non-vegetarians
major chunk of our diet is plant-based crops.
Yeah, actually, even if you're a non-vegetarian, right, your what you will eat will end up eating seeds.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do a deep dive into the seed supply chain, how it affects us. What are some of the issues which farmers face, which brands who make seeds face, as consumers, what you should be looking at, and as brand owners, how you should be looking to protect your brand as a seed manufacturer. We'll also try to look at some of the compliance and regulatory issues across the globe, in India and Europe, because at Aquis we've actually built technology to help across the globe. So let's get started.
Yep. Thanks. First of all, thanks, Nikhil, for having me. I think it's been a pleasure being here. And look forward to discussing some interesting stuff about crops, food, and what we actually eat every day.
Absolutely. So let's start with something which a lot of people may not know. Can you set up some context on the seed supply chain dynamics? So how are seeds actually made, and the actual supply chain of probably from the farm to your plate, what goes in between, maybe from farm to another farm. Just give us some context of the entire supply chain, the dynamics, and current challenges which you have seen, which the seed supply chain faces.
Sure. It's a very broad topic, first of all. I mean, supply chain of seeds itself would be a very long discussion. So I'll try to do my best to keep it brief and summarize it as much as possible. So there are multiple players, and let's talk about India specifically now since we are here. There are multiple players in India which are into seed manufacturing. Most of them are located around the southern belt of India, near Hyderabad specifically. So you'll find a lot of these companies based out of Hyderabad and surrounding areas. And a lot of the seeds get manufactured there. We are mostly private players in this company, and most of them are multinationals. And there are a few very well-known Indian companies as well which are into seeds. Right? And if you ask an agriculture scientist about how seeds are made, I'm sure he'll give a very detailed answer about that. But from a layman's perspective, as you would understand, there are specific farms meant for seed production. So by means these factories would have specific farms with very controlled environment, ensuring that the quality of the seeds they get is consistent. Because each and every seed that gets made, it has to go through a quality check, at least on paper, right? So in terms of the germination quality, the moisture, so a lot of those parameters are taken into account. And all of those parameters have to match or have to be within a certain range, right, for it to be sold. And every time a seed manufacturer sells a pack of seeds, those parameters have to be on the package as well, right? So starting from there, once the seeds are picked up from the plants or the farms, they then go to the factories where they get packed and further processed, and then after that of course get packed, and then the package is then sent to be sold through a distribution chain. It would involve a typical distribution chain of a CNF agent, a distributor, followed by maybe a retailer and then a sub retailer, and the farmer procures these seeds from the retailers, and then they would obviously, as per the instructions of the company, based on what pesticides work, what soil works, etc. All of that, considering all of that, they would plant those seeds and of course try to give it the best environment so that they get the right amount of yield. And then after that, that's when the crop grows. You
get a yield.
You get the yield of the crop, and then whatever the seed is for, let's say if it's for wheat or rice or maize or whatever, once the crop is grown, the actual product is then extracted and then further processed to be sold to consumers, right? So that's in a very brief, a shortened version of the supply chain. But having said that, there are a lot of things which go into the supply chain. There are a lot of science which goes into. We might think of agriculture as a very, it definitely is one of the oldest, tradition, one of the oldest profession in our world, right? And we've been primarily relying on agriculture since a long amount of time. And people think agriculture is not developed as much scientifically, right? But it has. I mean, especially in the last few years, we've seen a lot of development happening in this specific sector.
Okay.
So in terms of, ensuring that you have better yield of the seeds, in terms of the engineering that goes, the science that goes, the research that goes into ensuring that the seed is of the best quality. And also not just that, right? Also ensuring that, it provides the right amount of nutrition. And along with that, think about technology in terms of how technology supports the ecosystem itself, right? In terms of supply chain management, in terms of distributing pesticides to the seeds. You hear about drones doing it now rather than people spraying it.
Right.
And drones can do it at a very very focused area, focused point as well. So if a camera sees that this crop is now getting affected, they can be very specific and spray insecticides or pesticides in that region or that area only, right? So it doesn't affect the other crops which have not been affected.
So you're telling me like agriculture itself has gone through a lot of advancements.
It is, and it is still going. I mean, you see a lot of technologies that we talk about are getting adopted here. I mentioned drones. We're also hearing about blockchain. Mobile is now at the forefront, where all and most of the seed manufacturers try and reward the farmers as well in some way. Then there is a track and trace of the seeds which happen. There's a government regulation which also come into place which mandates seeds to carry some kind of a 2D code or QR code which provides the details about the seed manufacturing process, the process of how the seed was made,
where it's
parameters.
come from.
Sorry?
Where it's come from as well.
Where it's come from, the origin, the provenance, and all those aspects have to be covered in that.
So we'll be discussing this in detail a little bit later in the video, guys. So stay tuned. But coming back to the seed supply chain, right? So you used a very specific word which I had never associated with seeds. So let's first talk about that. You used a word called quality of seeds.
Right.
Now I have heard of quality of basmati rice from biryanis. You have some big brands which market that. But I never really thought of quality of seeds which actually make that rice. Rice is also a seed, but it goes through a lot of process to come to my plate. Correct. So let's talk about the seed. So when you say quality of seeds, so what exactly is the quality of seed, and how do they actually monitor this quality, especially the big brands which are seed manufacturers?
So the process here is that the brands have to basically do a test of the samples. So whatever samples or whatever product comes to them, the seeds that come to them, they have to basically get a certificate for that, right? And typically, if you are a registered seed supplier or seed manufacturer, that's a process you need to follow. So, and there are multiple parameters which you need to report, right? And in terms of, depending on the product, the parameters might differ, but the major ones, of course, are germination quality, your moisture content, your yield that can come out of it, or your outturn, for example. So a lot of these parameters get captured, and based on the product or the crop, this might vary. So, and it's very important because a difference in any of this might actually affect your yield. So knowing your quality of your seed and ensuring that it conforms to that is also very important. And then within each crops, you also have grades. So you have grade A, grade B, grade C, grade D. You have different grades.
And the grades will be in terms of the output, the yield output.
Yeah, it depends on that. Depends on the, like I said, moisture. A lot of these aspects, it depends on that. And the grade is then defined. And each grade would then, of course, attract a different price as well.
Oh.
So let's say for coffee, for example, you would have different grades in coffees. And based on the grade, you may be able to
charge a premium.
Charge a premium and get a different value as well, right?
Right.
So that adds to the complexity a bit.
Right.
So you want to ensure that two grades don't get mixed up. You are getting the right grade. Let's say if somebody is selling you grade A, you should be able to ensure that that bag of seed or that bag of product that you're procuring actually has that grade, right?
Yeah. So talking about the grade of seeds, one is the cost. That's the cost benefit which the farmer will get, of course, if he's able to procure the right kind of seed. But let's do further. Like, what else do you think he can get better from the seed if he buys the right kind of seed?
No, so if you buy the right kind of seed, the most important thing for a farmer is getting the most output out of it. Right? And of course, farmers are also very price sensitive in terms of what they're buying, and also ensuring that they have the right knowledge. For example, if farmers have procured a certain kind of material or procured certain kind of equipment to allow that seed to be grown, they want to also ensure that whatever they are procuring confirms with that, and also understand. Agriculture is a seasonal business, right? So it only works in seasons. So in that case, you want to ensure that if you're able to grow something now, the same field is also available for a different plant. So that there are certain kind of crops which go well with each other, right? So also that comes into effect, and all of that factor is something which a farmer has to be aware of. And
So I guess when you say high quality seed brand, they are essentially taking care of all these parameters.
yeah, so I mean, as a brand, of course, they need to ensure that one, it kind of conforms to the requirement of the government as well in terms of what quality a seed needs to be of. All the parameters which are important to be displayed on the packet, they also need to ensure that those are well defined and within the standards and within the thresholds. So that is another aspect. So brand, of course, also what we've seen is with certain brands, they have patents and trademarks about certain formulas or certain ways, especially around insecticides and pesticides, which then also support some of these seeds. So for a brand, it's also important that they are able to build other agri inputs, which are able to help improve the yield of the seeds that they are also selling, right?
Right.
So all of that matters a lot.
So a good seed brand is essentially doing that. They're building the seed and the ecosystem around the seed.
Yes, so they do that. They also run education programs, awareness programs for farmers. They run workshops where they explain to farmers about the seed, about the quality, about their insecticides, pesticides. A lot of those aspects are also covered, and also I think now some of the companies are also running programs where they would help farmers understand the soil quality, and be able to guide them better in terms of what should be grown and when it should be grown, not just then, what day it has to be planted, so that the weather conditions are right. So a lot of those aspects, and I think a lot of brands are doing that as a value add to not just to what they are doing already.
Right. So the brand's goal, they've made the right kind of seed. Now the goal is, boss farmers say, get the best kind of output from the seed.
Yes.
That's what they're thinking.
Of course, as a brand, you want to make sure that you are able to stand by the quality you promise. So if you are able to ensure that your product gets the best output, that's something which the farmers would love to. And then, like I said, it's a seasonal business, and also it's a very loyal business. So if a farmer buys one product, he or she is very likely to stick to that. So that's very important, that you're able to build that loyalty among your customers.
Yeah, and unlike a lot of industries here, as you said, loyalty is going to be huge.
It is. I mean, imagine if I'm buying a pack of seeds and it's doing well for me, very unlikely to change, because it's doing well, I'm getting the right yield, and I'm worried about changing it. Okay, if I change and it doesn't work out, because I lose the effort of 4 or 5 months that I'm putting in. Right? So it's a huge risk for farmers. So obviously they want to be very careful about how they, what they do and what kind of purchases they do, what brands they buy. So there is stickiness, and of course, if brands are able to get into what a certain product. So if a brand is doing well in maize, they're going to do really well in crop maize or corn, and if they're doing well in rice, for example, they're going to do really well in rice. So I mean, that stickiness is there. So that helps.
So let's talk about this. You gave us a brief of the supply chain. You told us, what quality really means in seeds and the space. What challenges have you seen which the brand experiences in this space and the farmer experiences in this space?
So there are multiple challenges, but coming from an industry where I come from, of course, we tend to focus on challenges that are relevant to our industry. So one of the major challenges that I've seen is, there is a lot of counterfeiting that happens in this industry.
Okay.
One of the article I was reading mentioned 30% of crop inputs are counterfeited, which is a huge number.
Wow.
Imagine a farmer putting in all that effort and then eventually figuring out that nothing is working well, and the reason behind it was the product that they purchased was not genuine. Sometimes they may not even understand or realize that it was not a genuine product,
Right.
and they might then tend to blame the brand, saying, "Hey, your seeds are not of a good quality," and then they might stop buying that. So it not just affects the farmers, the brand as well. So counterfeiting is a major issue and it's a major threat. Of course, there are other issues in terms of ensuring the supply chain is working smoothly, is efficient, ensuring there is product availability. As I said, seasonal business. So most of these companies tend to produce, before the season starts. Ensure they are bulked up as much as possible, and then they try to sell within the season, right? So ensuring that the product also remains fresh and the shelf life is good is also very important. So these are some of the other challenges. Plus, the other challenges for a brand perspective, apart from counterfeiting, tracing the seed when it goes to the supply chain. That becomes an issue because sometimes, when it comes to selling and getting the return of the goods back, a lot of things might go wrong. What they actually sell out may not, the same product may not come back. So being able to trace.
I didn't understand. Can you elaborate a little bit on
So,
this?
for example, when I send a product to a distributor, the distributor sends it to a retailer, then sells it to a farmer, and let's say there's a return of product for whatever reason. Now, to be able to understand how this return happened and where the origin of the product was, right? So you need to understand that all of these companies are not going to have a single manufacturing unit. They'll have manufacturing unit across.
Right.
So now to be able to understand which manufacturing unit it was made from, which distributor it went to, and where things might have gone wrong is also very important for them to know.
So they need to know if there is a problem in a specific farm where it's getting manufactured. Where is that farm?
Where is that farm? Or could be a distributor, something went wrong in the distributor end. So to be able to trace that product back to the origin or through the supply chain is also very important for them.
Got it.
So that becomes very important. And not just from a perspective of a business use case, but also as a government requirement.
Right. So let's talk about that. What kind of compliance, regulations or challenges you have seen when you're dealing with government as a seed manufacturer?
So, I mean, like I said, again, it's a vast field. Not a legal expert, but from what I understand, there's a government regulation which mandates some kind of a 2D code to be put in on products, so that a farmer or any food inspector or any company, anybody from the government can verify the origin, the provenance, the quality parameters, the manufacturing unit, certain parameters which the government has mandated, right? Like manufacturing date, expiry date, etc. And apart from that, of course, there are other regulations like the label has to be of a certain format, it has to be registered, etc. So all that also is very important. Plus, I'm sure besides that, like I said, in terms of your certifications, your parameters, quality parameters about the seed, they are also quite important. Hence, those things are something which need a company or a brand needs to be aware of. Plus, all of these companies have their own regulation teams which actually very well liaised with the government. And I'm sure there are a lot of other regulations they need to follow and ensure are in place. So I mean, like I said, not the right person, but I've given you a brief about at least what I'm aware of in terms of the regulations.
So let's talk a little bit more about this number which you mentioned, 30% is counterfeited in the seed space.
Yes.
So I'm curious now, unlike other industries, for example, when I'm buying an iPhone, I highly doubt someone will be able to counterfeit this.
You may be surprised.
But yeah, it's very challenging, I'm assuming. Like, especially at least as an end consumer, when I use the OS, when I see the hardware, software, I think roughly I can tell ki, okay, fake hai ya original hai. And second, I mean, a company like Apple has superb mind presence in consumers. So they'll be educating that buy from authorized resellers and dealers. But in case of seeds, honestly, from a visual perspective, if I take one pack of wheat here, seed of wheat here, and one more seed of wheat here, and I just interchange their packaging, at least from an initial perspective, I will not be able to tell what is original and what is fake.
So that is a challenge, right? If I'm able to replicate the packaging itself, a lot of times it's easy to dupe the consumers or the farmers.
And the poor farmer will find out during yield.
I may not even find out, right? I mean, he may not even find out. He might blame
The brand.
or blame some other conditions for poor yield, right? A lot of times we also need to understand there are people involved within the distribution itself which try to sell fake products, right? Especially fake seeds. So you might have somebody who might be a retailer trying to push a non-genuine product, and a lot of the farmers trust that last mile, the retailer.
Right.
So when a retailer gives you something, the farmers tend to trust that and tend to use that. So sometimes even people in the distribution chain are also involved, right?
Wow.
So then it becomes even more difficult.
So you guys have worked with a lot of brands. How often have you seen the people in the distribution chain being involved?
Oh, quite often. I mean, at least that's one of the major challenges, right? I know people in the distribution chain are involved in, like we work with plywood, and we know for sure people, retailers tend to sell fake plywoods as well.
You work with seed brands also.
So yeah.
Have you seen the same thing happen here?
So yes, so it happens as well. So I mean, any industry for that matter, somebody in the distribution chain is going to be involved. Of course, it may be outside the distribution chain as well, but it's easier to sell fake products in an existing chain rather than outside, right? So then you cannot rely on the chain. You cannot rely on your partners. So then you need to make sure that you take matter up in your own hands to ensure that the farmer gets the right product, right? It's not just about the farmer. Imagine if I'm growing a crop made out of seeds which are fake seeds, which obviously are not conforming to the standards which the government has specified. It will have serious health consequences when you consume crops.
For sure.
And then I'm sure a lot of times your insecticides or pesticides that you use
may interact in the wrong way.
Which are fake, obviously would be made out of chemicals which are very harmful, not just to humans, but even environment. So that leads to a lot of issues, and then that could be catastrophic. So it's very important that brands ensure that they are able to prevent fake products in their brand name.
Right.
And that's something which is, of course, we do help out brands in doing that. But I think overall, if a brand is in this sector or segment, they need to have a brand protection strategy for themselves, for sure.
Perfect. So we'll get into the brand protection strategy for brands a little bit later in the seed space. Let's talk about one more thing, which I found quite curious. On one side, you have government regulations, but on the other side, you also have government subsidies.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about, seed certification and subsidy? How does it work, and how does it help the farmer? How does it help the seed manufacturer?
Yeah. So I mean, there are state governments which give out subsidies to farmers, specifically when they buy equipment, and it has to come from a certain manufacturer, and if it comes from a registered manufacturer, only then they get a subsidy. So tracking subsidies, and you understand when it comes to money, it always gets misused, right? So we've seen, and government has seen that when it comes to subsidies, even though the product might not have been purchased, and the money has to then flow out. So that was actually hitting the government really badly. It was affecting their budgets, etc.
So it was not reaching the right people also.
It was not reaching the right people as well. So it was important that they are able to track which product has actually been sold and whether that product was actually sold, and then be able to understand what kind of product it was, and then give out a subsidy. So actually Karnataka government has actually run this program where it's important that they're able to track that. So they mandated that all manufacturers carry some kind of a element which can identify themselves. And it has to be a unique element for each and every pack, which can identify the manufacturer and can also identify which farmer it was sold to. It may not be happening now in terms of which farmer it's getting sold to, but I'm sure that's in the pipeline. So who it was sold to and where it was purchased from. And now when the farmer comes for a subsidy, now the government can actually track whether that product has come to the right system or not, because this is deeply integrated with the government system. So any product that gets sold, the government gets notified, and they're able to really track whether this product has been sold or not. And then once the product is sold and used, it cannot be reused again for subsidy. Right? So that saves a lot of money for them. So
right.
At least Karnataka, I'm aware that Karnataka government is doing it for seeds, pesticides, and equipment as well. I'm sure other state governments might be doing it as well.
Interesting. So now let's talk about some technological advances you've seen in seed distribution, which you guys have implemented. So at Aquis, we've implemented a lot of these stuff for seed manufacturers. We've worked with the government coffee boards as well, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit more about that? Like, you looked at the space, you looked at the seed distribution, and then you started building out tech. And I remember this couple of years back when blockchain and crypto was all rage. You had told me that we've been doing this since 2017.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So just share a little bit about that, how you guys have implemented some of these technologies to ensure that
Sure.
seed supply chain is clean and transparent.
So like I said, counterfeiting and track and trace. And then, of course, you want to build loyalty for your customers. And
Have origin as well.
and have origin as well, right? So what we've done is we kind of built products around this, ensuring that what starts from either from the factory or from the farm is the right product which ends up in the hands of the consumers, right? So in case of coffee, the idea was to ensure that when the coffee beans are picked up from the farm and when it gets processed and then sold to a consumer, we can not just track the provenance but also identify genuine coffee. There's also a concept called GI. GI means geographically indicated products, right? And this tag is given to products which specifically grow in a certain region, like Kur coffee or Kolhapuri chappal, etc. Or I think Assam tea, right? So these specific products which come from specific regions, which attract a lot of consumers to it, definitely get these GI tags, and they also attract a lot of premium as well, right? So it's very important that a product which is sold and told as mentioned as GI, a consumer can really verify that it's actually a GI product. Right? It's actually coming from that region. Right. A lot of people will try to sell a non-Kur coffee as a GI coffee, right? And that happens a lot. And then it could also be a fake coffee. It could also be coming from the wrong process. And like I told you earlier about grades, lower grades could be sold as higher grade coffee. All that, is where all those are the issues that come in. So how do you address that? So what we have done is we built an end-to-end seamless system which basically allows you to not just prevent fake counterfeiting of these seeds, but also track the product to the supply chain.
So how does it work if I'm a brand and if I'm looking at you guys, can you tell me how does it work?
The way it works is, let's say if you are a brand and you're a coffee brand, let's take an example of a coffee brand. So you picked up seeds from your farm. So right from that, we create a digital twin of the actual product. So right from your farm, and when the bag is packed, the bag starts getting its own unique identity, which is non-clonable. It's very important. You can give a unique identity, but if it's clonable, it doesn't help. So what we built is we have a patented solution which actually ensures it's a unique identity, plus it's non-clonable, which cannot be copied. So that happens. Now a bag is entered into our system digitally. And now when the bag moves across the supply chain, at each and every point, we capture a change of hands or change of... when the product moves, basically we capture that transaction happening. And now we know at any point of time where the bag is and what it has, in what state it has gone through. After that, let's say multiple bags get mixed up. So also that is captured. And the new bags that get produced, also we generate
unique identity for that as well.
As well, which are now mapped to your previous parent bags, which you might call. And then now when these bags move, same process follow. So now you're not just able to ensure that what you're receiving is, counterfeit proof, but also you can verify the trace of the product, track it through the supply chain, ensure where it is coming from. And like I was talking to you earlier, now some of the governments, especially talking about Europe, they made regulations wherein a product cannot come from a deforested area.
Oh.
So how do you track that? How do you prove to them it's not from a deforested area? So this system also helps you, let them verify that, it's coming from so-and-so area and this area is deforestation free. So not just that. So now, which means earlier...
if I could sell only to India, you can now export.
No, so a lot of products and especially coffee gets exported a lot. So earlier, when Europe was not looking at it, it was easy to do it. Now, if Europe is started looking at it, and if you're not doing it, you're going to lose out in that market, right? So, but on the contrary, if you have a system like this,
right,
you actually now would be able to gain that premium as well. Plus, you might do better because a lot of the other countries or other companies might not actually have a system like this.
Absolutely.
So you might stand to benefit if you already have a system which you've adopted.
So how do you guys ensure that the farmer himself is able to input these data? Like a lot of these places don't have internet and all those things.
So it's what we've also always focused on is building systems which anybody can use. And can be used everywhere. So we understand that, of course, we'll have people who may not be well educated, might not have used technology as much, use the system. Plus also, there might be areas like you mentioned where you might not have good internet connectivity. So our systems are built to tolerate all of this, right? We also ensure that we build applications in various languages so that people are comfortable in that native languages. Plus, we also ensure that, if you're in a region where there's no internet connectivity, we let you complete transactions. And then when there is network connectivity, when you move to a different area, we will be able to sync up with the systems. So we try and do that to make the life easy, understanding that ground realities are going to be much different than what we expect sitting on a chair like this, right? So we very cognizantly ensure that farmers or anybody using the system are able to do it easily enough.
These things have actually been implemented for some seed manufacturers.
Yeah. So we've had quite a few customers who are actually using our systems across India, and then we're also looking at some global companies as well.
Superb. So I have another question now. You're giving me visibility for my supply chain. That's good. But if I have an existing ERP system, like, I don't know, like how does it interface well with that?
So, I mean, most of the bigger seed manufacturers have their own ERP systems, could be a SAP or Oracle or Microsoft. And then they do a lot of those transactions on that. So it's very important that whatever you build is able to talk to that. I mean, integration as such with these systems is not difficult to do in today's day and age. So we do. So whatever system we build, we ensure that the company is able to integrate it with their existing systems so that there's seamless flow of data and visibility across the network and across their internal dashboards that they might have.
Perfect. Makes sense. Let's go a little bit deeper now. So you've explained how you guys have helped try to solve this problem. Any data which you can share without naming brands of any change in terms of how much counterfeiting was tracked or raided or whatever it is?
Yeah. So what happens is, in this case, the idea behind raids is, unfortunately, in a country like ours, laws are not strong, right? So even though you might do a raid now, to one of the same person can still, continue doing what he or she is doing. So the idea is, how do you prevent that? That's where our technology comes into picture. Preventing is the best measure. If you can prevent a counterfeit from happening, if you can ensure that the customer can, while buying itself, can identify a fake versus original, so that the fake doesn't even get sold, and then that's how the counterfeiters lose out. Having said that, yes, close to, we worked with most of the companies. They've been able to overcome counterfeiting, completely, right? And of course, there might be sporadic cases here and there which might still be happening, but to a greater, larger extent, we've been able to control counterfeiting for them. Plus, also, in terms of raids, what happens, like I told you, it's not that easy. They also obviously ensure that there are people on the ground who are actually continuously monitoring the ecosystem and supply chain. And we do have other products which will help you monitor your existing supply chain as well, so that there are no fake products that could come into the market if they do.
So my question was more along the lines of, once you started working with a brand, you must have seen a percentage change that so many counterfeits started getting identified.
Yeah.
So what are some real data and some real stories which have happened, which you have seen and even you were surprised?
So, I mean,
in seed specifically.
So I was about to say, as an anecdotal experience, in terms of feedback, seeds as such, we may not have got a direct feedback. We have certainly good feedback for other products, but we do hear farmers, coming back and saying, "I'm able to verify this. I'm very happy that I can buy original product." Right? In terms of numbers, it could be like I said, 30% is basically the numbers of fake products that are sold. So our data at least tells that close to that number is what we've been able to bring a change in some of the companies that we worked with.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So actually, you have seen that 30% ho raha hai lafda.
Yes. That's something which we observe, and we've been able to remove that as well. So yes.
Okay. So of course, you've implemented this technology, but how do you ensure it's adopted and farmers use it? Like, what kind of rewards do you give?
Like you already answered in your question, right? Rewards is a very good element to let farmers use the technology. So ensuring that once you've implemented technology, how do you improve the adoption? How do you get them to actually verify the product? And not just that, the good advantage of rewards program is that you also build in stickiness and loyalty for your brand. So the brands are actually killing two birds in one single stone. I'm a vegan, but I'm not supposed to say that. But anyways, Anyways, what I'm trying to say is, brands not just benefit from the fact that the technology and the verification is happening, but also now are able to build loyalty for their products. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And we've been able to also add that to our stack of technology or applications that we are able to provide to brands to use.
So typically, what are rewards like for farmers?
No, it depends. Very simple. It has to be very simple. Somebody that like a farmer can understand. You don't want to get into complicated programs and all that stuff.
He has a lot of things to worry about.
Absolutely. And it has to be very simple for them to understand. Now, I purchase a product, I should get some money in my account. That's about it. That works beautifully, because not just as a program, it's simple to understand, but you get immediate gratification. And as soon as I purchased, I verified, I've got some money in my account. There's immediate gratification, which makes a lot of difference, right? To a farmer who's now getting 10, 20, 30, or maybe 100 rupees back to his account, it does matter a lot. And not just for a farmer. I'm sure anybody who gets gratification like that would feel happy even if they get a couple of rupees or 10 rupees, right?
Right.
So in terms of the program, like I said, keep it very simple. And that's what most brands do. And that's what we do as well. We help brands do as well. And let them get that immediate gratification, which, gives them that satisfaction of having purchased this brand or product.
Typically in a company, I'm assuming that if 30% is a counterfeiting volume, I'm sure they'll have teams in that company which try to prevent it. So what do those teams do, and what value add do you provide to those teams? And typically, what are those job designations?
Yeah, so I was actually about to start with that. So yeah, most companies these days have a position called as brand protection team or a brand protection manager. And sometimes even your legal team would handle that. So a combination of your legal team along with your brand protection teams are actually going to manage and ensure there is no counterfeiting, there is no fraud that happens in the system, right? So initially it used to be a single man team, but now I think it's gone beyond that. You have companies where you have multiple people in that team, and not just within a certain region or a country. It's gone, it's expanded geographically. So you'll have brand protection teams across various geographies. If a company operates in various regions, you'll have, brand protection teams across, and you'll have certain regions managing, smaller regions in that area as well. So I think brands realize it's a very important aspect that they need to manage. They've created separate lines within their ecosystem, within their operations, ensuring that they have teams doing that separately. So that's how it is in most companies. And, that's a program or a job profile which is also very much in demand, right? So it requires special skills in understanding how to identify a fake product. It requires special skills in preventing fakes. It requires special skills to ensure that if fakes are found, how do you manage them, right?
Right.
And we help across, we help, we have products which help brand protection teams across all of these three aspects.
The first part of the question you have cleared. So, ye team hai. So now what is something which Acquis will enable, for a brand protection team, which they are already not doing? Like, what will you do for them?
To sum it up, for a brand, especially what we help do them is imagine what a ERP cloud system has been able to do to the industry, or what a cloud network like Amazon or Google has been able to do for an industry. That's what we help them manage, providing them services which are easy to access, easy to implement. And that's something which we're able to do. Providing technology which would have been difficult to access, right? And being able to package it within a simple usable system is what we're able to provide. So for somebody like a brand, it's a plug and play system. You buy the technology, you implement it, and not having to worry about it. It's something which doesn't require too many changes at their end. It's easy to implement, and it also has gives you the results. So as a brand protection manager, or somebody who's managing your systems or track and trace of your products, it's a no-brainer that you need something like this to be able to ensure that your products are protected from counterfeits, ensure that your consumers get the right product, and also ensure that your profitability and sales are not affected.
So there you have it, guys. So this was everything we know about seed supply chain and how we are doing our bit to protect it. If you're any brand and you want to reach out to us, our contact details are in the description below. And if you want to book a demo with our expert just to understand how the seed supply chain entire track and trace system and origin works, you can get in touch with us. We have experts who've been working with a lot of different seed manufacturers who can help you implement it for your own business. So Vikas, closing notes. You guys have done this already. But with cybersecurity, and I think even with your industry, there's always a fight where counterfeiters are trying to, outmatch you.
Correct.
So, what are some future strategies which you're where you're seeing it go and putting in place? And any closing words for any brand out there?
No, absolutely. I mean, like you rightly said, it's a cat and mouse game, right? You need to be a step ahead of the counterfeiters. So we're very much focused on improving our solution. We don't just develop one thing and then sleep on it. It's very important that you keep adding on it, you keep building on top of it, so that you're always a step ahead. And that's been our focus and value since we began. We stress a lot on research development, ensuring that our solutions are always ahead of counterfeiters. We might add a bit of complexity in the solution, but that doesn't mean it's not usable. It might be complex to a counterfeiter, but we also ensure that it's user-friendly to a consumer or a brand as well. That's what we do. In terms of closing words, it is a time where counterfeiting has increased, especially after COVID. Things have changed. The fraud that happens across the world, not just product fraud, but even financial frauds have gone up to a tremendous extent. So consumers, brands have to be well aware of that, and we need to ensure that we take steps to prevent that. We need to take matter in our own hands. We cannot just hope that things will get sorted out by itself. And also important that, especially if you're a new brand or a brand who is hoping, or which is hoping that this will never happen to me, you'll be surprised. And a lot of brands come to us and say, yeah, this is not happening to me. I don't really care. If it's happening, it's they take it as a flattery, right? And if something is happening, then that means the brand is good. But, not in this specific case, but you heard about Boat, wherein the guy used to say earlier, it was nice that my brand is getting counterfeited. And then he realized now how counterfeiting really affects him. And there was a tweet posted by him a few days back. So, we can do a separate discussion on that as well. But then, brands specifically, I would like to say, develop a brand protection strategy right from day one. It's very important. You might hope that doesn't happen to you, or if it happens to you, you might hope that it's a good thing. You'll be surprised, when it starts coming back and biting you. So yeah, that's about it. So thank you so much, Nikhil, for having me here. It was a pleasure talking to you.
So guys, a lot more videos coming up regarding counterfeiting across different sectors. We covered seeds in detail. We'll be doing some more on some more critical industries like pharmaceuticals, like electronics, food and cosmetics. So do subscribe to our channel for that. And if you have any questions related to counterfeiting, you can always get in touch with us. www.acquis.com, and our phone numbers and contact details are in the description below. Thank you all so much. See you in our next video.